You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
This is the Daniel Monday Night Community Show on demand through YouTube. Thank you very much for choosing to listen to us through this method. If you'd like to keep up to date with when I add new interviews, then subscribe to this channel.
Tears of the Devil by John Fryer, with Nigel Peaver, Richard Graylin, Jeff Bainham and Robin Ingram as the banker. The play is set in a fictional White House in the early years of the 21st century.
Ladies and gentlemen, following further investigation into the sinking of the oil tanker Ocean Spirit, it has become apparent that the terrorist cell behind the attack, identified as the Answar group in southeast Syria, are in fact connected both financially and militarily to that country's government. This clearly throws last week's atrocity into a whole new light. Because of this, both the British and American governments will later today be approaching the United Nations Security Council in the hope of finding a solution to this indefensible action against an unprotected vessel in international waters.
Mr. Ambassador, please forgive that interruption. Now, where were we?
We were discussing your nation's continued conquest of the world's natural resources.
Mr. Ambassador, for a Russian, you have a surprisingly well-developed sense of humor. Forget conquest. Try, domination instead.
Do you really believe you can continue to trample over the peoples of this world without them eventually turning against you? The world community today are more informed, more knowledgeable about world events and about the plight of the planet and the state of other human suffering and living condition than ever before in the history of humanity.
Mr. Ambassador, you clearly have never watched American television.
If you believe, Mr. Sterling, that my president will tolerate your action and allow the forthcoming economic result against my country, you have seriously underestimated Moscow's concerns.
Have I?
We will honor our treaty agreement with President Bashar and stand with Damascus.
Are you trying to threaten us, Mr. Ambassador?
Your actions are becoming reckless, Mr. Sterling.
For who, Mr. Ambassador?
Our economy rides upon a knife edge.
Very poetic, sir.
Russian output has now reached 8 million barrels a day.
Yes, I read that myself.
Our state budget is based on current prices per barrel.
Current price is $100 per barrel.
We cannot afford the lowering of the price. You know this, and yet you proceed. Why?
What would be too low for you is too high for others, namely us.
There are forces in Moscow that are starting to say quite openly now that things were better under the Tsar.
Are there?
Conservative pressures in Russia, as in Washington, that believe your involvement in Afghanistan is more driven by a desire to secure Caspian oil than finding international terrorists.
There are always those that like to sound off. I'm surprised, Mr. Ambassador, that you listen to them.
The Kremlin is not blind, David. We know of your 1,000-mile pipeline through Azerbaijan, Georgia, and to the Turkish Mediterranean, to the port of Chechen.
And you would have preferred us to go via Russian territory? North of the Caucasus Mountains, perhaps, to the Black Sea port of Norovsky, so you can maintain control over those ex-Soviet states.
You are breaking up our nation.
Moscow's star is all but faded. Your newly independent states are simply looking out for themselves.
Then Moscow will do the same. You must understand the world will not continue to accept your aggression across the planet.
You think not?
People are no longer naive to how this is done. People will protest on the streets of your cities and rise against your government. The world shall not allow you to continue as you have been doing.
Really?
The time will come when the globe shall pronounce enough is enough, and the great eagle will have its wings clipped.
So the great bear may tread the ground again.
The days of our empire are over, Mr. Sterling. It cannot be long, before yours is.
Well, Mr. Ambassador, every man is entitled to his point of view, but don't hold your breath.
You are most dangerous man, Mr. Sterling. I only hope you realize the risk of the game you are playing, and the price for all of us if you get it wrong.
Moscow must learn its place in the new century, Mr. Ambassador, as must the rest of the world.
Almost ready, Mr. President. 3, 2, 1. You're on, Mr. President.
My fellow Americans, there are simply no words to express the revulsion that we feel over this tragic event. The loss of the ocean spirit has touched the hearts of all peace-loving people around the world, and the people of the world call for the perpetrators of this vile crime to be brought to justice. That, I guarantee you, we shall do. We did not seek this conflict, but now the whole world has been drawn into it. We cannot, must not run from it. And so we call on all civilized governments of the world to pull together as one and defeat the enemy that is terror. To stand against fear, against intimidation, against what we know to be wrong, and to stand up and be counted for what we know to be right. We shall face this together with our longest-held international partner, the United Kingdom, and with our combined efforts, face the scourge of global terrorism. Together, the coalition will bring about a time of peace and hope to the Middle East and the world by bringing these evil men to justice. God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America.
And we're out, Mr. President.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Get me the Treasury Secretary, please. Willard, how are you? Good. Good. That's good to hear. Now, this report of yours, I want to be absolutely clear about it, because some of the guys before were painting a pretty bad image of the economy, and I'm somewhat confused as to our options here. Now, the GAO seem to be saying similar things to you, but with the GAO, who can tell? So I thought maybe you could explain it to me, like I was a voter or something. Firstly, the Fed always agreed with the previous administration's tax cuts and said we could afford it. And second, the rising price of oil seems to be setting us up for one hell of a nasty surprise in the not-too-distant future. Now, I know we've been trying to pay back the banks over this, but we just don't seem to be getting anywhere. There are schools and hospitals that we still can't afford to build, and the debt is just going to get passed on to the next generation. I mean, where did it all go wrong? And so quickly. It's to stop the people from doing what? In this country? In the 21st century? Explain that to me, very slowly.
Is that the current file?
Yeah. Everything we have on Joe Griffith. Age 23, couple of pieces in the Tribune. Before that, wrote for everything from college and school magazines to the local papers for his state in North Dakota.
I get the picture. A regular Bob Woodward. So what happened?
The White House is still talking to his employers and friends.
And the end of the story?
It looks like he was doing a piece on the position of women in Muslim countries.
Oh, there's always one.
His family would like to meet with the president.
No.
They've been on TV saying that maybe the president could mediate.
And stump up the cash?
He's their son. They just like to meet the president.
My mother would like to meet the president. Everyone would like to be seen at the center of power, but if we pay this ransom for one stupid, naive kid with a laptop who decided to go asking questions in the land of Allah, the message will be broadcast loud and clear that every American is a potential income, and then all those in the Middle East will all be in danger.
And they're not already?
Like I said before, it must be done in secret. Let's concentrate on the problem at hand and deal with Mr. Griffiths as and when we have to. Who's mediating, by the way?
The Red Cross have offered,
Fine. We can hide behind them if it all goes wrong.
if you say so.
I do.
You're ready to brief me on Syria and Russia?
We are, Mr. President.
Before you do, explain something to me.
What's on your mind, sir?
Joseph Stalin. Remember him?
Not personally.
What's on your mind, Mr. President?
He kept the Russian people down so much that they were almost at the point of starvation.
I believe that is correct, sir.
Ever thought about the wisdom of that?
Russia is no longer a global threat, Mr. President.
I wonder if it ever truly was.
Sir, shall we brief you about Syria?
Yeah, Syria, yep.
Since the 8-9 signing between Russia and Syria, Damascus has been producing chemical and biological weapons via its fertilizer plant at the city of Homs, under the cover of the Syrian Atomic Energy Commission. Through this and several other sites at Hama, Sarin, and the capital itself, the production of mustard gas, sarin, CW, and VX nerve agents have been identified as being within the Syrian military's arsenal.
How could any of these things be delivered?
Most likely via a ballistic missile, Mr. President.
Our friends in Tel Aviv tell us that Syria's weapons capability in this area far outstretches anything the Iraqis ever had.
Syria never signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty, did it?
That's correct, sir.
But do we know for sure that they have the capability?
Intelligence reports indicate an intention to do so.
That's the best they came up with for Saddam, and the world laughed at us.
Some of the intelligence people still believe in that argument.
No. Some of those with vested interests still want to believe in that argument.
Comes to the same thing, I suppose.
Anyone helping them that we should know about?
Holland, Switzerland, France, Austria, Germany, all have links with the Syrian weapons program, Mr. President.
And also, let us not forget, sir, that it was Syria that backed the 1986 attempt on an El Al plane in London. The country may have a different leader, but the people surrounding their president haven't changed. Those that advised the father are now advising the son.
But the Syrians will undoubtedly claim that all these chemicals are for civilian usage.
Everyone says that, but how can you prove it? Only a couple of weeks ago, it was an oil tanker in the middle of the ocean. Tomorrow, it could be Paris, London, Washington itself. I don't think Syria will dirty its hands, Mr. President, but they may well use the answer again, while we chase terrorists that simply disappear into other sympathetic Muslim countries. The Syrian government will just pick another target. We have to stop that from happening.
David?
Yes, Mr. President.
How do you think the Arab League will react to any moves against Syria?
Publicly, sir, they'll condemn it. Privately, they'll be too afraid to support them.
They'll say any action against Syria is just about oil.
Oh, Mr. President, it's about a lot more than that.
In episode 1 of Tears of the Devil, Nigel Pever was David Sterling, Richard Graylin was Carl Leach, and Jeff Bainham was President Townsend. Istvan Andresek was Russian Ambassador Arkady Gagarin. Dan Dawes was the Syrian expatriate Ali Kibram. Mari King was the British Prime Minister. And Robin Ingram was the banker. All other parts were played by members of the cast. Artwork for the series was by Sheila Jackson. And the series is written and directed by John Fryer. Tears of the Devil, Episode 1, is an audio production for Political Art.